I, 32M, have been married to Angela, 29F, for 3 years now. We dated for 2 years before getting married. Angela is currently 7 months pregnant with our first child. At least I thought it was our child until recently. I've been living with a growing suspicion that Angela might be cheating on me with my stepbrother, Jonathan, 30M. Jonathan and I grew up together after our parents married when we were teenagers. We've always been close, and he often visits our house. I started noticing some strange behavior about 4 months ago. Angela and Jonathan seemed to be spending more time together, often whispering and stopping their conversations when I entered the room. I caught them exchanging looks that seemed too intimate for a brother-in-law and sister-in-law relationship. One day, I came home early from work and heard laughter coming from our bedroom. When I walked in, I found Angela and Jonathan sitting on the bed, looking nervous. They claimed they were just talking about baby stuff, but something felt off. I also noticed that Angela's phone was always face down when she wasn't using it, and she started taking it with her even to the bathroom. When I asked her about it casually, she got defensive and accused me of not trusting her. As the pregnancy progressed, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. The timing of the pregnancy coincided with a period when Jonathan was staying with us for a few weeks, due to some renovations at his place. I started wondering if the baby could be his. Yesterday, we had a baby shower at our house. It was a joyful event with friends and family celebrating the upcoming arrival of our baby. Jonathan was there too, of course. I couldn't help but notice how attentive he was to Angela, always making sure she was comfortable and had everything she needed. After all the guests left, including Jonathan, who said he had some errands to run, I decided it was time to confront Angela. I didn't want to accuse her outright of cheating, so I thought asking for a paternity test would be a good way to measure her reaction. I approached Angela as she was cleaning up in the kitchen. "Hey, Angela, can we talk for a minute?" I asked. She turned to me with a smile, still glowing from the excitement of the baby shower. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath and said, "I've been thinking about this for a while now. I want us to get a paternity test done for the baby." The smile vanished from Angela's face, replaced by a look of shock and anger. "What? Why would you want that?" I tried to keep my voice calm. "I just think it's a good idea, for medical reasons and stuff." Angela's face turned red. "Medical reasons? Are you serious? You think I cheated on you, don't you?" I didn't want to reveal my suspicions about her and Jonathan, so I stuck to my story. "No, it's not that. I just want to be sure. It's a simple test, Angela. If I'm the father, as you say I am, then what's the problem?" "The problem is that you don't trust me," Angela shouted. "I can't believe you're asking me this. After everything we've been through, after all the love and support I've given you, you have the audacity to question if this is your child?" I tried to reason with her. "Angela, please calm down. It's not healthy for the baby for you to get so upset. I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to do the test." "No," Angela said firmly. "I absolutely refuse to get a paternity test. This is your child, and I can't believe you would even suggest otherwise. How dare you?" She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, feeling more suspicious than ever. Her reaction only confirmed my fears that something was indeed wrong. I spent a sleepless night thinking about what to do next. The next morning, I decided to reach out to Angela's parents. They had always been kind to me, and I hoped they might be able to talk some sense into Angela. I called Angela's mom, Linda, and asked if I could meet with her and Angela's dad, Robert. They agreed, and I went over to their house while Angela was at her prenatal yoga class. When I arrived, Linda and Robert welcomed me warmly, but I could see concern in their eyes. We sat down in their living room, and I started to explain the situation. "I don't know how to say this," I began, "but I have reason to believe that Angela might be cheating on me with Jonathan." Linda and Robert exchanged a look that made me think they weren't entirely surprised by this information. I continued. "I asked Angela for a paternity test yesterday, and she completely lost it. She refused to do it and accused me of not trusting her. I didn't tell her about my suspicions regarding Jonathan, but her reaction makes me think I might be right." Robert sighed heavily. "Son, we were afraid something like this might happen." I looked at them, confused. "What do you mean?" Linda reached out and patted my hand. "We love Angela. She's our daughter. But we know she has a history of being unfaithful in her relationships." This information hit me like a ton of bricks. You mean she's cheated before? Why didn't anyone tell me this before we got married? Robert shook his head. We hoped she had changed. When she met you, she seemed different, more mature. We thought maybe she had finally grown out of her old habits. But you suspected she might be cheating on me? I asked, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. Linda nodded sadly. We've noticed some signs lately. The way she talks about Jonathan, the secretive phone calls. We were hoping we were wrong. I sat there, trying to process this new information. So what should I do? She refuses to take the paternity test. Robert leaned forward. We're with you on this, son. You have the right to know if that child is yours. We'll talk to Angela, try to make her see reason. Linda added, and if she still refuses, well, there are other ways to get a paternity test done after the baby is born. We'll support you through this, whatever happens. I felt a wave of relief, knowing I had their support. Thank you. I really appreciate your honesty and your help. As I left their house, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was grateful for the support of Angela's parents. On the other hand, I was devastated to learn about Angela's history of infidelity. It made me question everything about our relationship. When I got home, Angela was already there. She was sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. As soon as I walked in, she started talking. I can't believe you went to my parents behind my back, she said, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. I sat down across from her. Angela, we need to talk about this. Your parents told me about your past, your history with infidelity. Angela's face crumpled. That was in the past. I've changed. I love you. If you love me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, then why won't you agree to the paternity test? If I'm the father, as you claim, then the test will prove it. Because it's insulting, Angela cried. It shows you don't trust me. And involving my parents. How could you? I'm not accusing you of anything, I said. And now, with you refusing the paternity test, what am I supposed to think? Angela burst into tears. I can't believe this is happening. I thought we were happy. I thought you loved me. I do love you, Angela. That's why this is so hard, but I need to know the truth. Angela just shook her head, continuing to cry. She didn't give me a straight answer, which only fueled my suspicions. I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days, I said, standing up. I need some time to think. Please, Angela, for the sake of our marriage and this child, agree to the paternity test. As I packed a bag, Angela watched me from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Please don't go, she begged. But I knew I needed space to clear my head and figure out what to do next. I left the house, feeling like my whole world was crumbling around me. Over the next few days, I stayed at a nearby hotel, trying to make sense of everything. I received several calls and messages from Angela, alternating between apologies and angry accusations. I also got a call from Jonathan, asking what was going on. I didn't tell him about my suspicions, just said that Angela and I were going through some issues. Update. The week following my departure from our shared home was one of the most challenging periods of my life. Each day felt like an eternity as I grappled with the possibility that the life I had built with Angela might have been built on lies. The quiet of my hotel room offered little comfort, serving instead as an echo chamber for my doubts and fears. On the 7th day of my self-imposed exile, my phone rang. Angela's name flashed on the screen, and I felt a familiar mix of hope and dread as I answered. Hello? I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. I can't do this anymore. Angela's voice came through, shaky and filled with emotion. There was a rawness to it that I hadn't heard before, and it immediately put me on edge. What do you mean, Angela? I asked, sitting up straighter in my chair. There was a pause, punctuated by what sounded like a stifled sob. Then, if you don't believe me, if you don't trust me, then I don't want to keep this baby. Her words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. For a moment, I couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. When I finally found my voice, it was barely above a whisper. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you're going to doubt me and question whether this is your child, maybe it's better if there is no child at all, she replied, her voice taking on a bitter edge that I'd never heard from her before. Anger surged through me, hot and sudden. Are you threatening our unborn child just because I asked for a paternity test? I demanded, my voice rising. Do you realize what you're saying, Angela? I'm saying I can't live like this, she shouted back. I can't carry this child knowing that its father doesn't even believe it's his. All you have to do is take the test, I said, trying to rein in my anger. If I'm the father, like you claim, Then what's the problem? The problem is that you don't trust me, Angela cried. The problem is that you've destroyed everything we had. Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at the phone in disbelief, my mind reeling from what had just transpired. The Angela I thought I knew would never have even considered harming our child. This threat, this manipulation, only served to deepen my suspicions and my resolve. With shaking hands, I dialed Angela's parents' number. Linda answered on the third ring. "Hello?" she said, her voice warm as always. "Linda, it's me," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Something's happened. I need to talk to you and Robert. Can I come over?" There must have been something in my voice, because Linda's tone immediately changed. "Of course, dear. Come right over." 30 minutes later, I was sitting in Robert and Linda's living room, recounting my conversation with Angela. As I spoke, I watched their faces shift from concern to shock to outright dismay. When I finished, Robert leaned forward, his face grim. "We can't let her go through with this," he said firmly. "This isn't just about the paternity test anymore. This is about the well-being of our grandchild." Linda nodded in agreement, reaching out to squeeze my hand. "We need to make her understand the gravity of the situation," she said. "This isn't a game. This is a life we're talking about." I took a deep breath, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. In the midst of all this chaos, it was comforting to know I had allies. "Thank you," I said. "I was afraid. I don't know that you might take her side in all this." Robert shook his head. "We love our daughter," he said, "but we can't condone this behavior, and we certainly can't let her make a decision like this out of spite or fear." Linda and Robert exchanged a look, seeming to have a silent conversation. After a moment, Robert cleared his throat. "There's something else you should know," he said, his voice heavy. "We were planning to give Angela a significant portion of our property and wealth as a gift for the child. It's a tradition in our family to provide for the next generation." I nodded, not quite sure where this was going. "But given the circumstances," Robert continued, "we won't be doing that unless she agrees to the paternity test and comes clean about everything. We can't in good conscience provide for a child whose parentage is in question, especially if Angela is considering alternatives." The implication of his words hung heavy in the air. It was a drastic move, but I understood their reasoning. This wasn't just about money or property. It was about forcing Angela to face the consequences of her actions and make the right choice. "What do we do now?" I asked, looking between Robert and Linda. "We confront her," Linda said firmly. "Together. She needs to understand that her actions don't just affect her, or even just you and her. They affect all of us, and most importantly, they affect an innocent child." We decided to call Angela and ask her to come over. She arrived about an hour later, her eyes red and puffy, her hand protectively cradling her swollen belly. When she saw me sitting with her parents, she froze in the doorway. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. "Sit down, Angela," Robert said, his voice gentle but firm. "We need to talk." Angela moved to the couch, perching on the edge as if ready to flee at any moment. Linda took a deep breath and began to speak. "Angela, honey, we know about the call you made to your husband," she said. "We know what you said about the baby." Angela's face crumpled, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "None of you understand what this is like." "Then help us understand," I said, trying to keep my voice calm despite the turmoil inside me. "Help us understand why you'd threaten our child rather than take a simple test." "It's not simple," Angela cried. "It's not just a test. It's you not trusting me, not believing in me. It's you thinking I could betray you like that." Robert leaned forward, his face serious. "Angela, we've always taught you that actions have consequences," he said. "Your refusal to take this test, your threats against the child, these actions have consequences too." Angela looked at her father, confusion mixing with the pain on her face. "What do you mean?" Linda took over, her voice gentle but firm. "We were planning to give you a significant gift when the baby was born," she explained. "A portion of our property and wealth to help you start your new family on the right foot. But given what's happened, we can't do that unless you agree to the paternity test and tell the whole truth about what's been going on." The color drained from Angela's face. She looked from her mother to her father, then to me, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're blackmailing me?" she whispered. "We're trying to protect our grandchild," Robert corrected. "And we're trying to get you to do the right thing, Angela, because right now, your behavior is not just hurting your husband. It's hurting your child, and it's hurting this family." Angela's breathing quickened, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she looked around the room like a cornered animal. I could almost see the thoughts racing behind her eyes, the calculations and considerations. And then, something seemed to break inside her. Her shoulders slumped, and a long, keening wail escaped her lips. She buried her face in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. We all sat in stunned silence, watching as Angela fell apart before our eyes. After what felt like an eternity, she raised her head. Her face was a mess of tears and smeared makeup, but her eyes held a resignation that sent a chill down my spine. "The baby," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not yours." Despite my suspicions, despite all the signs and clues, hearing the truth from Angela's lips felt like a physical blow. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I just stared at her, feeling as if the ground had disappeared from beneath my feet. "I'm so sorry," Angela continued, her words coming out in a rush now. "I've been having an affair with Jonathan. It started before I even knew I was pregnant. I hoped the baby was yours, but deep down, I knew it probably wasn't." The room fell into a heavy silence. I looked at Robert and Linda, seeing my own shock and pain mirrored on their faces. Angela sat there, small and broken, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this?" I finally managed to ask, my voice sounding strange and distant to my own ears. "How could you lie to me for so long? How could you let me believe this child was mine?" Angela shook her head, seemingly at a loss for words. "I was scared," she whispered. "I was ashamed. I thought if I just pretended everything was normal, maybe it would be. Maybe it would all work out somehow." "And Jonathan?" I asked, the name tasting bitter on my tongue. "Does he know?" Angela nodded miserably. "He knows. He wanted me to leave you, to be with him. But I couldn't. I loved you too much. Or I thought I did. I don't know anymore." I stood up abruptly, needing to move, to do something to dispel the nervous energy coursing through my body. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the door. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air hit my face, providing a brief moment of clarity amidst the chaos of my thoughts. Everything I had feared, everything I had suspected, had turned out to be true. The life I thought I had, the future I had planned, it had all been built on a lie. I don't know how long I stood out there, staring at nothing, before I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Robert. "I'm so sorry, son," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "We never wanted this for you. We never thought Angela would—" He trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. I turned to face him, seeing the pain and disappointment etched into the lines of his face. "What happens now?" I asked, feeling lost and adrift. Robert squeezed my shoulder. "That's up to you," he said. "But know this, whatever you decide, Linda and I are here for you, your family, regardless of what's happened." His words provided a small comfort, a tiny island of stability in the sea of uncertainty I now found myself in. I nodded, unable to speak around the lump in my throat. Over the next few days, I moved through life in a daze. I filed for divorce, the paperwork feeling surreal in my hands. Angela made no attempt to fight it, seeming to have retreated into herself entirely. Jonathan disappeared from our lives, unable or unwilling to face the consequences of his actions. I heard through mutual friends that he had moved out of state, leaving Angela to deal with the fallout alone. As I signed the final divorce papers, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was sadness, of course, for the life and love I had lost. But there was also a sense of relief, of a weight being lifted. The truth, as painful as it was, had finally come to light. I knew the road ahead would be difficult. The wounds inflicted by Angela's betrayal would take time to heal. But as I walked out of the lawyer's office, I felt a glimmer of hope. This was an ending, yes, but it was also a beginning. A chance to start over, to build a new life based on honesty and trust. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I took a deep breath, feeling as if I could truly breathe for the first time in months. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. And for now, that was enough.